my God, yum. Italian wedding soup today. Let's do it. I got a decent amount of requests for Italian wedding soup. So since it's 24 degrees this morning, I figured it was a good soup day. And so let's do this. So I'm gonna actually preheat the oven to 375 because I bake the little tiny meatballs that go into the soup. I know traditionally, a lot of times people will, they'll roll it raw and then they'll plop it into the soup and let just the soup cook it. I don't know, I'm not a fan of it, so I would prefer to bake it. You could do it either way, but if you're doing it where you're just kind of plopping in the raw meatballs, make sure that the soup has already come to like a rolling boil. So preheated oven to 375, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mince up and one like decently large yellow onion and two big garlic cloves. I put this, I'll saute this up and I'll put it in the mixture with the meatballs. So I have about 2 pounds of what you could find at the store, like they call a meatloaf mix or a meatball mix. It's usually a combination of pork, beef, and veal. You could, if you don't eat veal, I know there are people that don't. You could obviously do a combination of beef and pork. I like having the different types of meat only because sometimes the full-on beef can be too fatty, and sometimes pork can be too lean. And the veal just has a really nice taste overall. So I'm just mincing this onion, but that's up to you, honestly. So you can do whatever you want with the meatballs. I have like this little tiny pan. You don't really need a big pan at all. Just gonna put this over medium heat, and once it heats up, I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just gonna saute it up, and I'm gonna add in, obviously I'm gonna season it with salt and pepper, and then once the onions and the garlic start to kind of sweat and become translucent, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of hit the pan with a little bit of white wine. And it just gives so much flavor to it. So let's add, we're gonna call that 2. And I'm going with the onions. I kind of let the onions cook by themselves for a little bit before I put in the garlic, just because. Let me just grab a spoon here. Okay. Because the onions kind of take a little bit longer, and I don't want the garlic to burn. So, I mean, even though I have it over medium heat, sometimes garlic can be a little finicky. So this is probably one of the best one-pot meals you'll ever make because it literally has vegetables and meat, and if you want, you can do pasta in it. I usually make like a handful of like elbows or ditalini on the side in like a separate pot. And so like when we go to eat, if somebody wants to take the pasta, they can put the pasta on the bottom of the bowl and then they scoop the soup over it. I don't like to add the pasta in, especially if it's sitting, if you're making it earlier in the day and eating it later at night, because then the pasta will just suck up all of the broth and the stock, and the pasta will be like super duper fat and you won't have that much liquid. So that's why I like to keep the pasta on the side. I'm just gonna like roughly chop up this garlic. And the reason I do this little step for the meatballs is because it gives such great moisture to the mixture. Especially, like after the onions kind of like sweat out a little bit and then they kind of like release some juice, and then you're adding in the white wine. It just gives this amazing, like, I don't know, like this softness to it. So that is the reason why I think this step is really, really important. Partially for the moisture, partially for the flavor. So, let's hit this with a little salt and pepper. Oh, it smells delicious. And yeah, this is a great recipe to do in the morning, and the pot is on the stove, and everybody can eat when they're available to eat, right? If you know busy families, especially with kids that are even a little bit older, like mine, everybody seems to not be at the dinner table at the same time. So this happens to be a meal that's really great for that. So I'm gonna saute this up, and in the interim, I'm just gonna show you. So this is the 2 pounds of the meatloaf mix, the beef, pork, and veal. And I'm gonna go, while this is kind of cooking, I might as well just do this. I'm gonna go in here with about 3/4 of a cup. 1, 2, 3/4 of a cup of dried seasoned breadcrumbs. And a 1/2 cup of pecorino romano. I am a pecorino romano fan. If you are a Parmigiano Reggiano fan, by all means, go ahead and use that. I just really like the salty bite that pecorino has. So the onions are kind of sweating out, and they're starting to sort of like turn, not brown yet, but like they're definitely starting to turn like a color. They don't have to be completely caramelized. Just put this to the side for a second. I'm gonna grab some parsley and basil because I'm gonna add that in. Add that into the mixture. I'm just gonna kind of roughly take a little handful, chop this up real good. Doesn't have to be super fine, but since it's going in the meat mixture, you kind of want it broken down a little bit. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna put this in the meat mixture. Fancy. All right, so the onions are starting to really soften up, which is great. Getting a little color on it. So when it caramelizes, the onion kind of gets a little sweet, which is awesome too. Again, like I said, flavor and moisture. 2 things you definitely want in your meatballs. So we're gonna hit it with a little bit of white wine. This is a Sauvignon Blanc. Woo! Poppin'. If you have Pinot Grigio, by all means. So basically now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of let this reduce, and all that white wine flavor is gonna get sucked in by the onions and the garlic. And then you're gonna have this like really nice, like juicy mixture to add to the meatballs. So I'm gonna let that kind of reduce, and then I go in here, grab some basil. And if you don't have fresh herbs on hand, by all means, go ahead and use dry herbs. I know sometimes this time of year, especially with the basil and the parsley, oh, there's my oven. It's kind of touch and go at the stores. Sometimes they have really great bunches, and then other times they're like either non-existent or they look like they're half dead. So if you don't have fresh herbs, by all means use dried herbs. Just remember the dry herbs tend to be a little bit more strong, so use a little bit less. So this is gonna just kind of cook down. I'm gonna get the meatball mixture all ready, and then we're gonna roll it and pop it in the oven. So I just wanna kind of show you what this looks like before I put it in. So like, it's nice and sort of soupy, but for the most part, it reduced, I would say, 3/4 of the way. So that's what you want. You still want a little bit of moisture, a little bit more of the white wine still in there, but reduce it down to pretty much almost gone, but not quite. So we're gonna add this in here. And then this is a pretty big batch, so I'm gonna go with four eggs. If you're doing like a smaller batch, like a 1 pound, I would really you could only need like two eggs. And then we're gonna I just wanna add a little bit of pepper in here and a sprinkle of salt. And then we're gonna get them rolling. So the meatballs are in the oven, 375 for 18 minutes. The 2 pound batch makes about 50 to 52 like 1 inch meatballs. You don't have to use all of them if you don't want to in the same pot. You could also cut it in half, and once they're baked and cooled, freeze half of them, and then you have an easy dinner for another night. You know, you can make another batch of this, but instead of having to do the whole meatball thing again, you just take them out of the freezer and pop them in the soup. So while those are cooking in the oven, we're gonna make the base to the soup, which is your regular base to a lot of things, right? They call it, like, you know, the trifecta of things, right? Down in the South, it's bell pepper, but carrots, onions. These are not onions. Carrots, celery, onions, and garlic. So I'm doing 3 nice carrots, 2 nice sized celery stalks, and another like medium onion. I'm gonna put the heat again on medium, and we're gonna heat up about this time. We're gonna go with 3 tablespoons. So where's my knife? There it is. Okay. I just scrubbed these really good. If you want to peel them, go ahead and peel them. Sometimes I don't really think it's necessary, especially if you're buying organic carrots. Just give them a nice scrub under the sink, and they should be good. I'm taking off the ends because they tend to be dry, and nobody wants to eat the end of a carrot. You want to cut them so that they're pretty uniform. So just this way that they, you know, they cook evenly. So I tried to pick like 3 carrots that were pretty much the same size. So I cut these down lengthwise, and I'm just gonna kind of half moon them, and then I'm gonna pop them in. We're gonna do a little chop and drop. And so as far as the meatballs go, also, if you are gluten-free and you can't put the breadcrumbs in there, obviously you can use gluten-free breadcrumbs, but if you are just staying away from bread in general, I would just kind of sprinkle maybe like a tablespoon or 2 of cornstarch in the mixture, just to kind of have it kind of combine well, and sort of so that you're able to shape the meatballs. See, there was like a little end to this carrot that was smaller, so I just did it in rounds. But the thicker part, I will go ahead and chop in half moons. So they're in. I'm gonna do the same thing with the celery ends. I'm just gonna chop them off because I don't like them. And I'm just gonna slice these down lengthways as well. Give them a quick chop. And this flavor base is great for, I mean, obviously just about any soup or stew. But like I said, in the South, I think they do green bell pepper in their base. I'm not really quite sure how I would feel about a green bell pepper in this soup, but I'm gonna go ahead, and this onion does not have to be minced, just give it like a rough chop. Go through and down. And then I'm gonna add some herbs in here. And then we're gonna add in the liquid. We're just gonna kind of let that simmer while the meatballs are cooking. And, and obviously, forgot my garlic. I'm gonna use about 3 nice sized cloves of garlic. If you are not a garlic fan, you do not need to put it in. Or if you just want to use one, that's cool too. I'm just going to give these a rough chop too. They don't have to be minced because you don't want them to burn. Just a nice rough chop. And into the pot we go. I'm just going to give this a little mix. And you want it to start cooking down for a while, just to kind of soften up a little bit. So I would say a good 8 minutes or so. And then once they sort of start to soften, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the onions and garlic mixture for the meatballs. I'm going to do that here. I'm also going to add some white wine, and so that's going to add some extra flavor. And then I'm going to go ahead and I made like a little bouquet with kitchen twine of some just like parsley stems and some leaves and some thyme, and then I have 1 dry bay leaf. If you have fresh bay leaf, go ahead, absolutely add it in. I usually have dry on hand. I really like the way the bay leaf tastes in the soup. So I'm gonna go and pop these in there like that, and that sounds really funny, but the flavor is really great. And then season it up with salt and pepper. My arm is getting a workout today. I'm gonna go in, let's say about a teaspoon of kosher salt and maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper if you're really wanting to measure it out. But then again, once everything is in the soup, you want to retaste anyway and see if you need to reseason. So I'm gonna just let this cook. I'm gonna let this cook down for a few more minutes, and then we're gonna go ahead and add the white wine, and then we're gonna add the broth and the stock, and then we're gonna add the meatballs and also some spinach, and then this is gonna come together, and it's gonna be an awesome dinner. So the vegetables have been cooking about, I would say like 8-9 minutes or so. So they start to soften up, and the onions are kind of becoming a little translucent, and they're letting off some juice and whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add in about 1/3 of a cup of white wine. And that is the end of this bottle. By the way, this is a great Sauvignon Blanc. If you are a Sauvignon Blanc fan, try this. Okay. So we're just gonna let that sort of simmer a little bit. And then you could use stock, you could use broth, whatever you want. I love to use stock, but today I'm actually gonna use 1 stock, 1 broth. So it is completely up to you. The stock obviously makes it a little bit richer. If you're going with a full ground beef meatball, maybe try some broth so it's not super rich, because the beef can be sometimes really rich. It's just kind of like up to you. So I'm just gonna let this cook a little bit. Between the smell from the pot and the smell from the oven, golden. It is definitely a chilly December day, and this is going to be a perfect meal. And so, like I said before, so what I'll do in a little bit is I'll just boil some water, and I'll throw in like 2 cups of like elbow And I'll just let that cook. I'll strain it and I'll put it back in the pot, and I'll put like a little olive oil in there just so that they don't stick together. And then, so anybody that wants the pasta in their soup can just kind of scoop it and then spoon the hot soup over the pasta. And anyone who doesn't want the pasta doesn't have to take it. And then the pasta's not sucking up all of the juice in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add 1 container of stock. I love Kitchen Basics. Just think it's a really good alternative to homemade. I mean, there's kind of like nothing really, there's nothing as good as homemade chicken stock, but, and we're gonna add in 1 box of broth. If you have stock, homemade that's frozen, by all means, go ahead and use it. And then we are going in with 4 cups of water. So all told, it's like 12 cups of liquid, because 1 box is about 4 cups. We are going in with some water. And we're just gonna kind of bring this up to a simmer while the meatballs finish. They've got about 4 minutes in there. And when they come out, I'll be able to drop them in. And then we're just gonna add the spinach and we're just gonna mix it all together. So the meatballs are about to come out of the oven. And what I wanted to tell you was what I like to do before I put the meatballs in the soup is I like to just kind of line a plate with some paper towels, pop them on here just to kind of get any excess like oils that come out of the meat, especially if you're using all beef, because you don't want to have all those like oil, like that oily, it looks like an oil spill in your soup, which you don't want. So I know it's like a little extra step, but it's definitely worth it, because then like it kind of, oop, there they are. It kind of gets all the excess oils off of it before you plop it in. So let me get these out. Oh, they look so good. Yum. See, there they are. Nice and baked. There's also a little tiny one. I ran out of room on my tray. I guess I'll put these over here. So just gonna kind of grab my little tongs and just kind of pop them off here, because you know, not only does the beef have the oil, but also the cheese has got a little oil in it, so it kind of starts to excrete while it bakes. So you just kind of want to get all that off, because you don't want that floating in your soup. So I'm just gonna do this as fast as I can. I'm so excited that I get to do another soup for you guys. I also had a request for French onions, so that will be coming soon too. Figure this is something kind of cool to do over the winter months. Soup just tends to be such an amazing dinner, because a lot of times it's just chock full of vitamins and vegetables and meats. Like you could do like a lentil and sausage. Ooh, that might be really good. We might have to try that one week. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of let these drain here, and then we'll go from there. And we're gonna fish out the little herb bouquet and the little bay leaf, since that's kind of been simmering with it all this time. And just gonna give it like a nice stir. And then you wanna go in with probably a good, I would say, 5 cups of baby spinach. Because you know spinach just wilts down to nothing. So we're just gonna go in with that. Give it a nice stir, and it's just gonna kind of all melt in there. Do that first. We'll wilt the spinach this way. You wanna wilt the spinach first before you put the meatballs in, because then you're kind of like stabbing at the meatballs while you're trying to wilt the spinach. So you see how it just like melted down to nothing. But this is great. So all the veggies. If you don't have spinach or you want to do a different green, escarole would be really nice in here, like chopped escarole. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm going to plop these drained meatballs. I kind of reserved 20 on the side over here that I'm gonna freeze once they, once they all, you know, come to room temperature, because you don't want to freeze it while it's really hot. And I'm just gonna kind of let this simmer. Once the meatballs are in here, I'm gonna let it simmer for like maybe another 15 minutes so that all the flavors of everything come together. And then you have dinner. This whole thing probably happened within, I would say, about an hour. So if this is something you can do, you know, before you head out for the day, then you don't have to worry about your evening and feeding everybody. So just gonna kind of let this go. And I hope you try this out this week, because I promise you it will be a family favorite. And also it'll warm your insides on this extremely cold December day. So thanks for hanging with me. We're gonna do more soups. I think French onion is next. Melissa, I remembered what you said. So I'll see you guys soon.